Look! It's Unicron!
Hey Transformers fans, hope you all had a great weekend. Big news dropped by Hasbro today to make your Monday a little bit more bearable. The follow-up to the Star Wars Jabba's sail barge is going to be big. It's going to be very big. You could even say it's going to be planet-sized. It's going to be Unicron from Transformers the movie. And when I saw this thing, the only thing I could say was Vector Sigma. This thing is going to be glorious, but it's going to have an equally planet-sized price attached to it. It's going to be $574 shipped, I believe, in the United States. But the one thing missing from that little price tag on the Hasbro Pulse website, underneath it, it should say +1 marriage, because I think for a lot of people, in order to add this bad boy to their collection, it's going to cost them a marriage or some kind of a relationship. That is an astronomical price tag. It looks amazing, just mind-boggling, and I was just thinking the other day, when are we going to get another Unicron? Because they've been doing such amazing updates, especially with the Giants lately. We got a new Fortress Maximus a couple years ago, a new Metroplex finally in the scale, or in the size that he should have been, a new big Trypticon and Predaking, and all we've had for years is this Armada Unicron and the numerous different repaints of him throughout the years. He looks pretty good, he's nice, but Unicron is the biggest Transformer ever, so I was just thinking, when are they going to come out with a new Titan-sized Unicron? And this is definitely Titan-sized and then some. It's going to be about 27 inches in height, which is a couple inches taller than the Titans Returns Fortress Maximus. So just to give you an idea of the scale of the new Unicron and how it's going to scale to a human being, this is Titans Returns Fortress Maximus, and he is colossal. Not actually all that heavy. I think he's actually lighter than the original G1 Fortress Maximus, but he is a big, hefty guy, so your Unicron is going to be a couple inches even bigger than that, and even wider too. Unicron definitely has the girth, plus with those skeletal wing things, gives him a pretty big wingspan as well. And the coolest thing of all is this is going to be an actual toy that you'll be able to play with, Transformer style. So it will transform from robot to planet, and it's going to have something that this version sorely lacked. It's going to have a stand so that you can prop it up and just have it floating through space, or your toy room, or your living room, or your kitchen, since he is a hungry fellow. And that's one thing that I always wish this one had. There was a fan-made stand years ago, but it was made in limited quantities, and I've always wished that this one could just be propped up just like this one. The new Unicron is going to be. The detail is just amazing. He's going to have individual fingers, and also the coolest part I think about the planet mode is that the Maw is actually going to have working teeth, fangs too, and I assume it's also going to have some electronics too, like light up green eyes. And for that price point, some voice clips would be awesome too, especially to have a Transformer with the voice of Orson Welles in it. So here's the deal on how Haslab works if you're not familiar with it. It's crowdfunded, so it's not a toy that's going to be released worldwide in stores or even online stores. It has to reach a certain level of funding before they'll go through with it. Now this one is a little peculiar because usually we get sketches of what's to come, concepts, maybe like a little mock-up, which is easy to do for something like Snake Mountain, Castle Grayskull, that type of stuff. But this is a giant transforming toy with a lot of moving parts, and it's surprising how much of this thing is actually done and functional that they can hold in their hand. So a lot of development has gone into this already, so it's a little peculiar if it doesn't reach the target to just drop it and say, well, that was worth a shot. I suspect that we're going to see this one way or another, whether it's backed or not, but I'm pretty certain it's going to get backed. The target is 8,000 backers, and the price is $574.99. So as of right now, they have a couple hundred backers already, and there's 47 days left on the deadline. And I do think that they're going to reach it, because one thing I've been noticing with these crowdfunding projects is that panic creates profit. There's a lot of people who, when they get a countdown, a timer, they have this urgency, you might even say anxiety, to get in gear and get it before it runs out. Because there's so much regret in the toy collecting community. People looking at things and going, why didn't I get that while it was cheaper? Or why didn't I hold on to all those things I had? Now they're so astronomically expensive, I can't afford them anymore. So putting a countdown on things like this, I think, works in their favor, because there's a lot of people who don't want to miss the boat. And that Jabba sail barge, as much as it was $500. To get one now, mint in box, is a lot more than that. So you also have the mentality of, well, it's going to be a lot more expensive if I change my mind and I really, really want it down the road. So it's almost like convincing yourself that this is the sale price. It's cheaper right now to get it at this price. I would personally love to add this to my collection, but I just don't see how I could make that work with my current budget. And it's also a little bit different from some of the other gigantic playsets. A few years back, I did put the money down for the Masters of the Universe Classics Castle Grayskull, and that was a big chunk of change too. But the reason I went with that is because Grayskull was such an iconic location for He-Man. It's the source of all his power, and it also works as a display piece, a diorama, a play set with all the other classics figures. It's in the proper scale for them. Or if you wanted to even go bigger with the castle, you could use the vintage He-Man figures with the Classics Castle Grayskull, and then you got a giant, cartoon accurate sized Castle Grayskull. The thing with Unicron, in any incarnation they'll ever do, is that he's a planet. He's not just a base or a building or even a city, he's a planet. So you're never going to get a Unicron that's proper scale or even close to being proper scale. So to just give you an idea of what I'm talking about, here is a World's Smallest Transformers Optimus Prime, which came out years ago. These are little tiny miniatures of the original G1 Transformers. If you were to put this next to that Unicron or in his hand, he's still way, way too big, considering the scale of Unicron. And the thing that I'm going by in the movie is when he picks up Galvatron and he swallows him. So speaking of Galvatron, there's this teeny tiny, even smaller than the World's Smallest Transformers Optimus Prime, teeny tiny Galvatron, just all purple, no paint apps, but he came with Elagos, which was the X-Transbot's third-party Cyclonus, Masterpiece Cyclonus, so that you could put him in Cyclonus as a pilot. Even this, I think, is too small for that Unicron. Getting close, but still too small, because when you remember the end of the Transformers movie, Hot Rod in the Junkion, or in the Quintesson ship, the corkscrew ship, crashes through Unicron's eye, and he makes a fairly big-sized hole, but that's an entire ship holding several Transformers, not just one Transformer flying through his eye. And I know the scale changes throughout Transformers. There's all sorts of scale issues, but the scale that I like is that Unicron is a planet, and it takes a giant ship to punch a decent-sized hole through his eye. And I would suspect that right now I am about Unicron sized. So we would need a 6-foot-tall Transformer for Transformers this big. For a Transformer toy to be this tiny, you'd need a 6-foot-tall Unicron. That's the type of scale that I'm going with. So in terms of going together with all of the other Transformers in my collection, it just wouldn't go, and that's always been the problem with Unicron. With other playsets, like the USS Flag, it's a giant playset, but it's in scale with the G.I. Joe toys. Goes perfectly with them. Fortress Maximus even fits with the Transformers. Other giant playsets from other toy lines. The Thundercats lair is quite a bit undersized, but still you can put a lot of Thundercats in that layer. Unicron is like still too small. This giant new Unicron, it's still way, way, way too undersized to put him there with your Masterpiece Transformers, or even your G1 Transformers, or even your world's smallest Transformers or Legend scale Transformers. Guys who are on the smaller scale, the third-party pocket Transformers. All comes down to personal preference, and I'm just sharing my personal preference that as awesome as it would be to have a Unicron for display in the collection, my biggest problem with this and pretty much any Unicron is that he's a standalone thing. He doesn't really blend in with everything else, whereas with the other giant pieces I have, they are centerpieces to everything else, and the scale pretty much works. So even though I'm most likely never going to own this thing, I'm still extremely excited that this thing exists. It is a marvel. It's a piece of art. I'm very happy for the people who are going to be able to afford it and own it. And I encourage them to take lots of pictures of it so that other people can enjoy Unicron vicariously through them, and also do some videos too. If you've never done a toy video before, what better toy to start with than Unicron? Just futz with it, play around with it. But looking forward to seeing how this thing turns out. Hopefully the final product is up to par with the prototype images. Sometimes, especially with hot toys, the final product doesn't look quite as good as the prototype images did. But this thing, if they can just get it to look like it does in the prototype images and not have to do too many compromises. Hopefully we don't get, well, we had to change this cool thing because it didn't work in practicality. If they can put it out the way it looks right now, it's going to be mind-blowing. The biggest Transformer ever made. There's a lot of competition. Seems like every year they bring out a new Transformer who by 3 millimeters is now the biggest Transformer ever made. But I think it's fitting to have a Unicron toy be the official biggest Transformer ever made. And don't sweat it too much if you can't get it. The price is astronomical, and a lot of us have families to support. We got bills to pay, so don't worry about it. That's what pictures and videos on the internet are for. You can vicariously live through other people and appreciate their joy through empathy. One thing that I was considering for a fleeting moment was going in on it with a bunch of other people, maybe locally, so that we could all chip in and co-own it. But I just don't see how that would work, because that takes me back to childhood whenever I try to co-own something, pool the money and own a toy, there'd always be difficulties in scheduling who would get it, who gets it this weekend, and how long they would get it. And then sometimes you get it and it's missing a piece or something's broken, and it's like, oh man. So something like this is ideally something that you would just own and watch over and take care of. So to see the video on it, head over to HasbroPulse.com. They've got a bunch of pictures there, as well as a hype video showing a bunch of people playing around with it and 3D renderings and all sorts of other cool stuff there. So what do you think? Are you going to get it? Are you going to try to get it? Do you even have the space for it? Scroll down and go to town. And to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Nerdmas Day.